Can I get the can too? Someone who wants to start the beverage brand today.
India is actually a very hard market to sell beverage in. But in the US, people have they have an extra fridge just for their beverages.
So kombucha, even in today's time, sounds a little elite. How did you make India to sip it?
People were using our kombucha for all kinds of different things, So because we came up with really interesting flavors, we would get calls from mixologists.
Were you scared when you started afresh? Did you ever doubt your product?
I wouldn't say I ever doubted the product. I feel like we've always made an excellent product, but I was curious.
Did you ever think of shutting it down?
I mean, we still really struggle with payment collections. We've failed 100 times in our business.
The new kombucha brands, they sell for like 95 rupees. How clean are they?
It probably hasn't been maintained cold chain. It's not going to do anything for your gut. It's still maybe a nice low sugar soda.
How did you test your products?
So every Sunday morning, we would go to the farmer's market. I've had people tell me that kombucha tasted like piss. Maybe we should make this less tangy, or maybe that person was just... We sort of started changing our language around kombucha. Instead of saying this is really healthy, you would say this is really tasty and it's better than soda.
What was the original product?
A cough syrup.
If someone has to start, what are the kind of investments?
We started our company with zero.
Do you think a new entrepreneur should look into quick commerce, especially in a beverage space?
Quick commerce is a launch strategy, unless you have like a 10 crore rupee marketing budget.
If you want us to keep bringing such amazing entrepreneurial journeys on this platform, please subscribe to our channel, The Sonika Mata Show today. Let's begin with the journey. It's so nice, Rebekah, that you made time today. As I told you earlier that I've been one of the first customers of Atmosphere Kombucha. In 2018, I was trying to fix my gut. I came across the concept of kombucha, that what kombucha is. And to be honest, none of my friends knew about it. So I looked it up and I thought, okay, maybe I'll find it. And you were the only brand back then who was selling kombucha. Of course, I'd really want to know how to start a beverage brand in today's time.
Yeah.
But my history and my love for Atmosphere really makes me feel happy and proud in a way that, I've completed a whole circle and we're sitting together right now discussing about kombucha, how to start a beverage brand in today's time.
Yeah.
And the little that we want to contribute to the young entrepreneurs who want to be on the same path as you are.
Yeah.
So the intent of this podcast is to only take away learnings, hacks and tricks that you learned your way. You have a journey of 7 years.
Yeah.
It's commendable that you're not even an Indian and you have picked up a lot from the Indian roots. It's nice to see someone making a space in Indian market. Of course, you have first mover's advantage, but you believed in it. You had the conviction that this is something that's going to work. And today we see a lot of kombucha brands, but I value that you were there for me when I wanted to fix my gut.
Yeah.
You were there to educate me what kombucha is all about, because I had just one book to fix my gut. I was taking this 22-day challenge. And it was nice to also connect with an entrepreneur who's educating, telling stories, showing exactly like how Scooby looked like, how that live culture looked like. And I remember back then, for my knowledge, that we started with smaller batch, which also made me realize that it's a clean product. Today, I do have my doubts how these kombucha brands are selling kombuchas. Like, how clean are they? At a point in time in 2022, I wanted to make my own kombucha. I started brewing at home. I got a kit from you. And that's also nice that, you gave that kit to your customers. There was a product like that you can also brew your own kombucha. There was no insecurity about it, that how will my kombucha sell?
Right.
If people start to brewing. So you not just were selling a product, but you were also getting a revolution, contribution in wellness, also giving this platform to people to try on. And your recipe was very nice and clear and I could understand how to do it. I actually kept making it for good 6-7 months and the whole science behind it, the whole concept and the whole process was amazing. And I think not just me, my friends, my husband, everybody was entertained that what is the new flavor that is coming in.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for bringing that revolution. And a lot of people need to hear out a lot more about your journey because it is very insightful and genuine and unfiltered.
Yeah.
If a guy who wants to start a beverage brand today, an entrepreneur, how do they go about it? 7 years ago, you started kombucha in
Yeah.
a foreign country, especially in a country where 90% of the people didn't even know what kombucha is. What was your conviction?
Yeah, so I mean, I love hearing your story and about how, you wanted to fix your gut and kombucha, became that tool for you. And I think that for us, our mission at Atmosphere is just that. We really just want to help people have better gut health. It's not that we have to just sell kombucha, like we're also happy to teach you how to make your own kombucha, if that's something that you want to do, because we really just want people to have better gut health. We want to help them to understand the gut is, the microbiome is the center of your health. It's, it's the second brain. There's so many different disorders that you would think are not related to gut health that actually are. So, a lot of mental health, for example, is linked to gut health. Depression, anxiety are often go hand in hand with different gut issues. For us, we're really just on a mission to help people have better gut health. A lot of people, they assume like, oh, you must have great gut health. You've started this gut health brand. But of course, like a lot of times your entrepreneurial journey, it comes out of your biggest struggle. And for me, that was gut health. I had a lot of gut problems in my early 20s. And that's what led me to start making my own kombucha. It led me to cut out entire food groups. I went gluten-free because gluten was actually something that was causing a lot of problems in my body. After sort of feeling really bad and then discovering things and then feeling really good, I thought, maybe I'm not the only person that is feeling like this. And I had gone to college in the US. And while I was there, I saw kombucha kind of go from being this very small niche industry. Again, nobody knew what it was.
Yeah.
To becoming bigger and bigger every year. Eventually, by the time we started Atmosphere, kombucha in the United States was a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
I grew up in India. So, for me, it was moving back to India. One of the things that I noticed was like, oh, nobody's selling kombucha here yet. But I saw it as this global trend. I saw kombucha companies opening in Europe. I went to Bali. I saw kombucha companies there. I visited a brewery in Bali. The first time I saw kombucha being made commercially was in Indonesia. And that was probably, it was soon after that I made this decision that I'm going to start a kombucha company in India. And then it was nice to see that, okay, there's this gap in the market here in India. But it wasn't, when we started the business, we didn't do a whole lot of market research or, we were very inexperienced. We were young. We didn't really know what we were doing. Now, the advice I would give someone who is wanting to start a beverage company, is to really understand the market, and understand what it is that you're offering people that they don't already have. To understand that India is actually a very hard market to sell beverage in. It's a market where everyone just likes to make chai and like nimbu pani at home. Because I'm from the US, they're like, oh, like the US, like there's this brand and it's doing so well. And, how come we are not seeing similar numbers in India? But in the US, like people they have an extra fridge just for their beverages.
Yeah.
Like an entire fridge. The fridges are also very big there. They're 2 or 3 times the size of our fridges here in India. It's just a culture where people, they don't actually drink very much water in the US. They drink a lot of carbonated drinks, which is why kombucha has done so well. It's why healthy sodas have done so well there. India is it's a very different type of market.
Everybody's a child lover. Like you go to a house, you'll be greeted with chai mostly. Although I see a changing trend because of Instagram, because of internet penetration, because of quick commerce now. So there are a lot of different brands. But I still feel that, yes, kombucha is still very alien to a lot of people. Kombucha, even in today's time, sounds a little elite. If I have served it to the guests also, they say, what is that?
Yeah.
So how did you make India to sip it?
We didn't start as a brand where we said we want to be in every household. And there's a reason for that too, because kombucha, like we make completely natural kombucha, like the orange kombucha that you're drinking. It's made from real oranges that are picked in the Himalayas, and squeezed and not processed. And then that's brewed into a kombucha. So that process is expensive, And then also we make raw unpasteurized, unfiltered kombucha, so it needs to be refrigerated. Cold chain logistics is also very expensive. Cold chain logistics in a glass bottle is also expensive. So, with all of those different costs, we realized, okay, this product is going to command this price.
Yeah.
Initially, our customers were people who knew about kombucha, people like you who were a little bit, first movers, a little bit more involved, do research, figuring things out, or people who had traveled somewhere else, had kombucha, came back to India. So that's how it started. At some point, we saturated that market. And as we increased our distribution, we found that people were using our kombucha for all kinds of different things, So because we came up with really interesting flavors, we would get calls from mixologists who said, who would say, oh, we just want your blueberry lavender kombucha because there is no blueberry lavender soda in the market.
Yeah.
And we need it for this cocktail. We would get people who said, oh, I used to drink a lot of Coke, but we have a cola la flavor, right, which is a cola flavored kombucha. I used to drink a lot of Coca-Cola. My doctor told me I can't anymore. I found your kombucha and I switched to that. So these are people who didn't really even know what kombucha was, but they discovered it in the market. They tried it. They liked it. And then after drinking it, they also felt better, which made them want to continue drinking it.
But were you scared when you started afresh? Did you ever doubt your product?
No, I wouldn't say I ever doubted the product. I feel like we've always made an excellent product. I wasn't scared, but I was curious. So for me, it was, definitely the first few years, it was more of an experiment than anything else to say, okay, if we make this really great product, will people buy it? Will they drink it? Will they keep buying it? And I think that was my mindset. I think, that's one sort of piece of advice that I would give to young entrepreneurs is that you're not going to succeed right away. And if you're constantly trying to figure out whether you've succeeded or failed, we've failed 100 times in our business, but we just then picked up the pieces and moved forward. So I think our perspective has always just been to be more curious. People want a cola flavor. Let's see if we can make it for them so that, we can kind of evolve with the feedback that we get.
Did you ever think of shutting it down? I mean, did you have those phases initially?
Not initially, but there were some points like partway in. I mean, we still really struggle with payment collection, and cash flow becomes this sort of big issue. The Indian market operates like that.
Yeah.
That has created a lot of challenges, where debts are owed to us, we owe debts to other people. It definitely can create a lot of stress at different times. And so there's times where we've definitely thought maybe we should just stop doing this. It's too stressful. We're doing a good thing, but nobody's paying us for it. And we owe people money. And, it just feels bad, right? It doesn't feel like what you're doing is good anymore. So, I mean, there's many times where we've thought, should we shut this? But we always ended up keeping on going. Yeah.
How did you test your first set of products? Say, if a guy starts making beverage, like a certain sorts, it's not really restricted to kombucha. Kombucha is definitely niche, but another niche beverage. It could be a mixer or something else. How do they test their first set of products?
Yeah, I mean, I would say go to a public place, do sampling. When we started Atmosphere, we used to every Sunday morning, we would go to the farmer's market. Okay, we would give samples to every single person. We would take feedback. We'd go back based on the feedback that we received, and we would adjust our product. I think it's so important, not just to get feedback from your friends and family, but to get feedback from total strangers. I've had people tell me that kombucha tasted like piss before, and then, I went home and I thought, maybe we should make this less tangy, or maybe that person was just an asshole, you have to make that decision. But I think it's really important to kind of get that feedback so that you are also not deluded about your product, because as a founder you always love your product, but you need to see and understand what people are saying about it.
The mindset is so different, right? Especially for kombucha, people cannot fathom that something like that can help the gut, and people are not really aware of gut issues. And we live in a very fast-paced life, so it's hard to penetrate such a product, especially in an Indian market, which is also dominated by mass-produced drinks, like fruity or Coca-Cola. So it's hard.
Like the Indian psychology, what we ran into in the beginning. So in the beginning, we would say, oh, this is a product. It's super healthy. It's great for your gut. And people would say, oh, but I don't like healthy stuff.
Yeah.
Immediately, like, I don't even want to try it because healthy stuff tastes terrible. And so we realized that a lot of people had this like mental block about health. You know, like you'd have people say to us, oh, I'm only going to live once, so I just want to have whatever I want. We sort of started changing our language around kombucha. So we would say, you know, instead of saying this is really healthy, you would say this is really tasty and it's better than soda. You know, so we kind of started changing the way that we talked about it because we realized that market of people who are really health conscious is very small.
Yeah.
Definitely, you know, things like COVID and stuff have created more awareness and more interest in that market. But when we first started, I mean, I was shocked by how many people would just tell me, oh, but I'm not interested in healthy things. I mean, it made me very curious.
Because it sounds like more like work to
Yeah,
people
or
getting to
just had these like
fitness.
Ayurvedic concoctions that, you know, taste like very bad. And so they think it's going to be like that. I mean, I think one thing that has happened in India is that a lot of this kind of like healthy food or these Ayurvedic things, like they do taste really bad.
Yeah.
So which makes people say like run away from that kind of stuff. Yeah.
You had your own set of setbacks, right? When you felt that, oh, you may want to shut down, but you're still keeping it going even now. Like it's been 7 years.
Yeah.
What is that one thing that you feel kept you guys going?
I think it was stories like yours, you know.
Yeah.
So to hear these stories of people saying like, oh, I had your product.
Right.
I feel so much better. It healed my gut. I think for us, you know, that was always really what kept us going. And that was our goal. It was our mission. And so, you know, every time we would think about like, maybe we shouldn't do this, we'd say, oh, but there's like all of these people who still are drinking our kombucha every week or every month. And so that was always a big part of it. Another part of it was like our team. We're an all women's team in our factory. And a lot of our team members, you know, come from, you know, difficult kind of backgrounds. And so, you know, we always felt like, you know, if we shut down the company,
Yeah, wouldn't happen.
you know, what will their future look like?
Yeah.
Versus if we keep it going. Instead of sort of having this black and white idea of success versus failure, we just took every failure as a learning opportunity. And we thought, okay, this happened. It's not good.
Yeah.
But how can we move on from this? How can we pivot from this and learn from this and keep going?
Right. I do relate with the responsibility aspect of it when you have a team.
Yeah.
You know that the house is running because of you, and
Yeah.
you would provide them first, then yourself, right? In those situations. Can you tell me what was the first set of product like? Because like say I am drinking this and I see 7 years back also it was the same design and I still love it. You know, when I looked at it, I was thinking that you must have done a lot of research because the colors were on point. You have a certain color palette, right? The way you did bottles. I mean, this was one of the first sort of packaging that I saw around.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole product in itself is very, I would say, forward, especially for 2018.
Yeah.
So what were the thought and the processes that went into making this?
Yeah, I mean, it was a combination of like a certain aesthetic that we had that we wanted to put forward.
Yeah.
A certain taste, like the flavors, you know, we had an idea of like, okay, we want to do something with ginger. We want to do something with blueberries.
Right.
We want to do something with lemon. So we had certain flavors that we wanted. We realized that people were attracted to colors. So, you know, when we were creating flavors, we were very conscious of like, what color is this flavor? Which is also why we chose a clear bottle with a clear sticker. But also, I mean, the bottle was a very interesting discussion because, you know, with the glass industry is very complicated and it's very tricky to get your own, it's very expensive to get your own bottle made. So we had to work with what was available in the market. And at that point, like now, actually, there's a lot more bottles available in the market. But when we started in 2018, it was like either you go with like the soda bottle or you go with the lug cap, like the Kevin Tears milk bottle. or, there weren't very many options. And when we first started, we actually started like our first batch, I think we put into those Kevin Tears bottles, but they weren't holding the fizz very well. And we didn't really like them that much. The shape of it, we didn't like that much
Does it
either.
blow up, right? Explode.
It would just let the fizz out. So those caps are not airtight. You can get a version of them which is airtight, but the normal ones that you get, like with milk and stuff in them, they're not properly, they're actually not sealed to be airtight, especially for pressure, because kombucha, it's fizzy, so there's some pressure also inside the bottle. So this bottle is a cough syrup bottle. Yeah, we'd never seen anyone use it for a beverage. When we first went to place our order, the trader that we were buying it from, he said, nobody will ever drink a beverage out of this bottle. And I was like, you can still give me my order.
What it is originally, what was the original product of this bottle?
A cough syrup. So it's a syrup bottle. Yeah. So it's a pharmaceutical bottle, which actually, has been really good for us because it's very high quality glass. So it doesn't break very easily because it's made for medicine, versus a beverage bottles are made out of low quality glass. But when we first launched, we would get all these compliments on the bottle. People would just tell us, I like your bottle. It's cute. I initially kind of thought like, well, once we have the means, we'll get our own bottle made. Like, we're not going to stay like this forever. But I feel like, at some point we just kind of, our product became synonymous with this bottle. And so many kombucha companies have copied us too and used the same bottle. Done the same type of things that we do with our caps and even similar labels. So I think it's been, we at some point we were sort of, we might change the bottle one day. Who knows? It's working well for us. So I don't feel like there's a reason to change it.
Makes sense. Because I also identify Atmosphere Kombucha with the bottle first. I visit Greener Cafe and there are a lot of other kombuchas now on the shelf. So this is one of the bottles which looks a little different and also the colors pop out. So great on packaging part and also overall aesthetics and values. So what were the first flavors like when you experimented? Actually, I don't want to really delve into flavors, but how did you come up with the thought of, what was the process creating this beverage? Did you do it at home or steps like? Did you study a little bit about it? Because I know you referred to your travels. But what are you really going to do about it? Why I'm asking you this? Because a person who starts their own beverage brand will have an understanding that these can be certain points they can keep in mind. Because I truly believe in process, the strength of process. If your process is very strong, your product is going to be very strong as well.
Things, when I was thinking about starting a company, I was thinking, what am I good at? Right? What is something that I know a lot about? I'm really good at it. I'm better than other people at it. And one of those things was kombucha. So before we started, it wasn't that I decided I'm going to start a kombucha company and then I learned how to make kombucha. I'd been making kombucha for years. I was very good at it. I think, that's something that I think it's really important, for people who are exploring, starting something. You need to be good at that, right? To be able to create something that's really good. And some of these things, they take years to develop these abilities to craft something that's really good. We're starting Atmosphere, we had been making kombucha for years. When we started the business, it was just more about, okay, how do we standardize this? And I also had a background in food standardization. So I worked Fab India. I started Fab Cafe across India as well. It was a project that started small and went to a very large scale. We focused very highly focused on food standardization in that project. So, those were some things that I already had a background and I was already good at those things. And I think that is part of why we were able to be successful as a business, because there were a lot of other kombucha companies, where someone was like, oh, I learned how to make kombucha and then I started selling it. And we would get people, we'd run into people at the farmer's market and they're like, oh, I've tried kombucha and it's terrible. I've had kombucha. It tastes so sour, so bad, and we would say, have you tried our kombucha? Because, we're not like novice brewers. Like we know how to make really good kombucha that's really healthy, but that also tastes really good. And so I think it's, it's really important to have a lot of knowledge to be very good at what you're planning to sell. There's going to be somebody who's better than you.
So did you learn kombucha from somewhere, or it is just self-taught?
So I first learned, I had a friend named Rosalie when I was in university. And Rosalie had, she had spent a summer working in a kombucha brewery.
Okay.
And she taught me how to make kombucha. So she had worked as a professional kombucha brewer. And then she was my friend in school. And I learned from her how to make kombucha.
So you're telling me that your friend taught you how to make kombucha, right? Mm-hmm. It's still very intriguing for me, like how your childhood was a little, maybe would you like to touch a little on your childhood?
My family moved to India in 1992. My father was an IIT professor.
Okay.
But in 98, I think, we moved to Mussoorie. And I think what's interesting, especially at that time about living in a place like Mussoorie, was that we didn't have access to like a lot of processed foods. There weren't really that many, there was no restaurant that would deliver to your house. It wasn't like living in a city where you could get a pizza. When we first moved there was nowhere where you could get a pizza. I mean, I was always this kind of big foodie, and my mom was not. My mom was just kind of like, I don't want to cook, really, was sort of her mentality.
Yeah.
And so my sister and I, we sort of got really into like making food from scratch, So we would make pizza at home. We would make nachos. We would make the nacho chips, because we wanted to have nachos at that point. This was before Cornitos. We'd roll them out. We'd make them into tortillas, and then we would cut them up, and then we would fry them, and we'd make nacho chips, So I think growing up somewhere that was remote.
There was YouTube back then?
No, we just had, like, my mom had a lot of cookbooks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think at that point we were just looking at cookbooks. By the end of high school, we had like Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Or not Wi-Fi, but internet, via cable in the house.
Which is the worst.
But, this is before phones, before, Wi-Fi. And so, yeah, it was cookbooks, learn how to do things, or you would learn from somebody else, right? Someone would invite you over, or we'd travel to the US, we'd learn how to make something, and then we want to come back and make it here. Yeah, I mean, definitely from an early age, I was very, very interested in food. I would read cookbooks like for fun, you could often see me just reading a cookbook. To me, I still love reading cookbooks. Most people would think like that's not something to read, but I love it. I think my brain was always very motivated by and interested in food. Yeah.
And not just food, I think I've seen your personal page, just to know a little more about you.
Yeah.
I saw that you were also into yoga. You would talk a lot about wellness. Do you think Mussoorie is the reason why? Because, I mean, with my limited knowledge, I feel was because I have a friend who lives in Kulu. So she also has a community around with a lot of yogis. She knows more about spirituality than me.
Yeah.
And she's not an Indian. She's been living here since 8 years, and she has friends who, grew up here.
Yeah.
I see that maybe these offbeat spots in the country have a lot more exposure about yoga or wellness. Yeah. Or is it because of the expat community you have?
So in terms of wellness, both of my parents are very, very much into wellness. Okay. So they're both always been, my whole life, they've been very fit, been very conscious of what they eat. They read books on how to live longer, how to eat healthy, different things like that. People always, they'll ask me, like, you take all of these supplements every day. My parents, like, I was just visiting them a few weeks ago, and their supplement cupboard is like as big as your kitchen. I mean, they take it, and I was like, this is where I get it from. They've always had a very keen interest. So in my home, like, if you wanted to have Coca-Cola when you were growing up, you had to like either have it outside or like sneak it into your room and like hide it under the bed, because my mom did not allow any sugar in the house.
Okay.
No chips were allowed in our house, which is why we were like making nachos from scratch, because we didn't have like an option to bring junk food home.
Okay.
But it also, it made us very interested in like learning about healthy food, cooking healthy food. So that started for us from a very young age. I wouldn't say Mussoorie is a wellness hotspot. I don't think it ever has been. Like Rishikesh, maybe.
Okay.
I think some of these other areas that get sort of more of this offbeat kind of yoga tourism, but Mussoorie doesn't have any yoga really. And when I first wanted to learn yoga, I just became interested in it. I don't know why I became interested in it, but I actually learned from a book. Because there was nobody in Mussoorie who could teach me yoga, and I just wanted to learn it. So
books have been your best friends in a way, right?
I've always loved books. Yeah.
So say someone who wants to start the beverage brand today, it could be kombucha or another mixer, say. What should be the step 1, 2, 3 they should look into?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to, gain an enormous amount of knowledge about the product that you want to launch, understand the market, understand that India specifically is a very, very difficult market for beverage, so also understand that you're doing something that's very challenging. I think it's much easier to start like a skincare brand or even a clothing brand than to start a beverage brand in India.
Even in today's time? Do you think that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not starting the brand that's difficult. It's actually getting people to buy the product that is quite challenging because people just don't buy that much beverage here, so you don't have people stocking a lot of beverages at home. It's more of a culture where people go out to a cafe. That's when they'll have a beverage versus like drinking a lot of beverages at home.
Is it okay to ask if you have repeat customers, what is the timeline of ordering the second order? Like usual, have you ever noticed those?
I mean, it really depends customer to customer. Like we have subscribers like you who order a box of 12 every week.
Yeah.
And you also have people who order 3-4 bottles a month, for example, from our website. Now, we have less data because, we have quick commerce, you have stores where the product is available. So you don't know if, somebody ordered from your website, they didn't order again, but maybe then they just got it on Blinkit, for example, right? So there's more ways to get the product. It really we have different kinds of customers. So, there's customers who buy it because it's a nice drink to have, maybe if they're hosting or for something nice to sip on the weekend. And then we have customers who buy it for their gut health, for example. And there's something they're drinking every single day. So, I mean, we used to have like this group of like ginger kombucha customers, and the ginger kombucha, because our ginger kombucha has so much fresh ginger in it.
Yeah.
It's very, very healing. And so we would have people, they would just order 12, box of 12 ginger kombucha like every
because my order had majority of ginger.
Yeah. And so you can always identify, okay, that person is using kombucha for digestive health, for anti-inflammation, and they're using it to feel good, right?
But as you said that it's hard to penetrate in the market because the regular orders are not that regular. I mean, there's no pattern to it, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like as a culture, like it's not a culture like when you go to the supermarket, you buy your vegetables, you buy your packaged food, and then you buy in other countries, like people would buy their vegetables, their packaged food, and then a case of drinks or 2 cases of drinks. And they always have drinks in the fridge.
Yeah.
Like, I think in India, it's different, like you would have nimbu pani, as a daily type of thing.
Arundia wise.
But, have a packaged drink, on occasion. So I think that's what makes the market a little bit tricky. So like space, right? So it's, our kitchens in India are very small. Our fridges are very small. So for a product like ours that's refrigerated, there's always this concern of like, we don't actually have space in the fridge to keep a large amount. So we have to order smaller quantities.
If this entrepreneur starts, you mentioned that they should look into the market first.
Yeah.
Test it out.
The market, like understand the product.
Yeah.
Understand how you're going to manufacture the product.
Right.
Understand, your timelines, your packaging, what kind of cash flow you're going to need. All of that really depends on what the product is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some things are simple to manufacture.
Yeah.
Some things are complicated to manufacture. And so the kind of investment that you need is going to sort of depend on the complexity of your beverage.
So I think let's get into investments only. If someone has to start, what are the kind of investments one should look at and be prepared from starting and doing their R&D of the product to putting it on the shelf?
I mean, I think there's two routes that you go down when you're starting any company, but specifically a beverage company, and you have to decide whether you're going to manufacture yourself or you're going to work with a co-manufacturer, like a co-packer. Like, well, if you manufacture yourself, you have a lot more flexibility. Your initial investment will go into machinery or equipment, and you have that ability to sort of alter your flavors, change your flavors as you go. I think for us in the beginning with kombucha, the fact that we were making our own kombucha just gave us so much power to take market feedback, implement it immediately, launch new flavors, discontinue flavors, do small batches, do seasonal batches. So it gave us, this ability to really, pivot and move, flow with the market. But it also, it's very complicated to manufacture. I think one thing that Ariella and I realized is that, we're not engineers, right? We're not experts with machinery, nor do we even have a food manufacturing background.
Yeah.
And so, at one point we found ourselves doing classes in FSSAI regulation, doing classes in commercial brewing and things like that, because we didn't actually have that knowledge when we first started the company. And I still feel like there's a lot of knowledge, especially about machinery, that I don't have, that if I had it would be helpful. And so, it kind of depends on how much you're willing to get your hands dirty and kind of go into the nitty-gritty of things. Versus if you work with a co-packer, then, they kind of help you create the flavors and they give you the product. All you have to do is kind of design it and sell it.
Yeah.
And so it's a much simpler process. But it also, they'll have MOQs. You'll have to buy a certain amount of stock.
Yeah.
You have to move that stock. Creating new flavors or new batches will be challenging because you have to work with the manufacturer and you have to always manufacture a certain quantity.
Also hygiene.
Yeah, I mean, hygiene is really important, like in any food business. And if you're manufacturing yourself, it's something that you have to be very concerned about and have a lot of knowledge about as well.
So do you think it's smarter to maybe test it out with a co-packer and then do your own, or start your own little kitchen setup and then see how it goes?
It really depends on the beverage. It depends on what the beverage requires, right? So if it's something that needs carbonation or pasteurization, these are things that you can't really do at home in your kitchen. And then you either need to buy a lot of equipment or you work with a co-packer. Versus, something that's a bit more natural, that doesn't require a lot of machinery. Why not do it at home? You just have to make sure that you have all the knowledge and understanding to ensure, and, get it tested by a lab and things like that to ensure the shelf life.
So suppose kombucha is anyway a health drink, right?
Yes.
As what I've learned, the fermentation process matters. So while I was also dwelling into this stage and I thought, I also want to make my own kombuchas and sell it because I was just passionate about kombucha. It didn't pan out for me because that passion was just very short-lived. But I did check with a lot of co-packers back then that, how do you do it? And he said, madam, hum koi bhi flavor bana denge. And when he said that, it hit me hard because I come from a background where I'm having natural ingredients in my kombucha to this person who's telling me that they'll probably add flavors. They have some sort of flavors. Then I also checked how are you fermenting it, because if you ferment it in a plastic, I think it can go for a toss, right?
Yeah, it can react.
It can react.
You can get plastic in your product.
Especially in a wellness segment, do you think it's tricky to outsource it?
For a product like kombucha, I think we've never been interested in outsourcing it because we don't feel that there's anybody in the market at this point in time who can make kombucha as good as we can. Even a lot of brands now in the market and a lot of your kind of traditional beverage manufacturers, they would not be willing to do the processes that we do in our kombucha, because the processes that we do are maybe a bit more expensive, they're more natural, and they're designed for health. You see nowadays, most of the kombucha you buy in the market is actually not refrigerated. It might be stored in the fridge at the store, but you'll maybe see it outside of the fridge. There'll be cases outside of the fridge, or, it'll be transported without refrigerated. And that's because that kombucha has either been filtered to the point that there's no probiotics in it, or it's been pasteurized. So it has probiotics in it, but they've been killed. And that makes the kombucha shelf stable. but it also removes all of the benefits.
Yeah.
And so we've always been very, very clear that we're not going to do anything to our kombucha that's going to remove the benefits from it.
Yeah. Because I don't know if I should mention it, but it's a very clear reflection that your product, given attention, in a way, I remember there was one whole crate of kombuchas that I got from you. And the moment I opened, it was highly carbonated.
Yeah.
And you mentioned why.
Yeah.
And it was also a reflection that, this kind of problem may arise because you're obviously experimenting, but there are no, as you said, it's not pasteurized.
Yeah. And it's not like our kombucha is not forced carbonated, right? So it's natural carbonation, which means that we try to control the amount of fizz in every bottle as much as we can.
Yeah.
But because it's a live product, sometimes, the bacteria just has a mind of its own, Yeah, it's really fizzy. And I mean, we've gotten better at controlling that over the years, but there was times where we had a lot of exploding bottles. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like literally running towards the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
I love the idea that I called you up and you mentioned that why it's happening.
Yeah.
You mentioned about how we can, I mean, you replace the carton too, I remember. But you explained me very well and you educated me why it's happening. So I was like, okay, this is great. At least I'm not having another cola or like, I know a lot of kombucha brands. I don't mind saying this, but I know they are not clean. They're just flavored and they claim to be kombuchas and I don't know the amount of sugar that has been put.
Yeah.
There's a whole science behind it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't mind drinking something which they call it's a ginger beer. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I know it's like a nice tasting drink. That's it. But when you call it kombucha, you have to be very responsible because you're calling it a fermented drink, which it is or not, we don't know.
Yeah, I think it's tricky, because it's such a niche industry and there's no regulation on what makes this a kombucha or what makes this not a kombucha. Like we have kombuchas in the market now that contain a very small percentage of kombucha, for example. They're mostly just carbonated soda with like 2% kombucha, and then let's call it kombucha, for example. No one's gonna sue them. There's no law to say that you can't call this kombucha, for example. There was recently, I think, a kombucha company founder talking about how his kombucha doesn't have any benefits.
Does it have any benefits?
Doesn't have any benefits. And it's because he's filtering out all of the bacteria. And I thought, oh, that's such a dangerous thing to say because real kombucha should have a lot of benefits. But it's also, I think there are people now making kombucha and just saying, okay, it's like a healthy soda.
Yeah.
Because we've removed all of the benefits because we don't want to deal with cold chain.
Yeah.
It's expensive. So there's this big movement to kind of bring the price of kombucha down. And you can only do it if you eliminate the cold chain because the logistics of the cold chain is very expensive.
Yeah, because I see the new kombucha brands, they sell for like 95 rupees.
Yeah. So if it's 95 rupees, it probably hasn't been maintained cold chain. It's not going to do anything for your gut. It's still maybe a nice low sugar soda.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have live probiotics in it.
It's also going to be interesting to understand what is harder. Perfecting the beverage or the drink that you want to sell or making people drink it and pay for it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends on who you are, to what is hard for you. I think for us, definitely, the part that was more challenging was getting people to drink a kombucha, and expanding that market. That was, it's definitely been a challenge. It continues to be a challenge of just, how do we get
anything else?
Yeah, I think, sales in any business, it's a big challenge. Definitely, like for us, I think that's been more like, I think from day one, we've been able to make really good product, but, getting people to consistently value and buy that product, for some people, it just depends. Some customers, it's not a challenge, but for other customers, it is. And I think it's a challenging market.
So what was your strategy to educate people or tell what it exactly is? Because say Atmosphere, I remember it used to be 220 rupees, right?
It still is.
It still is 220. And then there are other players in the market that are selling kombucha for 95 rupees. I'm pretty sure when such a market came into picture for you guys, you must have given a thought that, hey, this is the new kombucha and it price maybe half or
Yeah.
more less than that actually. They're also selling on quick commerce, and the market exploded all of a sudden, right? So, what was your strategy to keep calm and to keep your brand strong?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, like,
Hmm.
for me, it's always been like, it's not just about getting you to buy the product once,
Yes.
right? I think for me, it's that cycle of like, you buy it, you drink it, you feel better, and then you want to have it again. I think, if we were to, I think when you have some of these cheaper products
Yeah.
that don't have any benefits, you buy it, you drink it, you feel the same. Maybe you buy it again, maybe you don't. But I think, for me, it was always that, for us, that cycle was always, we want people to feel better. If they're not feeling better when they have our product, then we're doing something wrong. I think when, like when we see these cheaper products come into market, it doesn't scare me. I think there's a different customer who wants those products, who can afford those products. That's not necessarily the customer that we're after. Although we are, like, by the time this podcast is released, like, we will have launched like a cheaper soda. So we have been working on, a product that we want to reach more people at a lower price point. For us, it was important that that product not be a kombucha, that it would be a prebiotic soda that is shelf stable, and that is different from the kombucha that's a bit more premium that we still sell.
So someone has to start a kombucha brand today. And I know you mentioned when I asked you about the investment part that everyone has a different goal towards it, right?
Yeah.
So someone who wants to start a similar thing as you are doing, what kind of investments they should look into?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you definitely need, somewhere, from 50 lakhs to a crore, I think, to really be able to start a kombucha or a craft beverage. You'll need certain equipment, you need to be able to buy material, and then you need, money for marketing, obviously. That said, we started our company with zero. We didn't have any money when we started it, and we were able to kind of grow organically through our sales. So it's possible to do it that way as well, but it was definitely slower.
So someone can still start at a low investment, but it's got to be slower is what you mean.
I think, yeah, it'll be slower. It takes a lot more like grit to be able to do it that way.
And what is that one thing they should definitely do to gain more traction and momentum?
Sampling.
Sampling.
Yeah. So I think, people, they buy things that they've tasted. If you don't know what it's going to taste like, then you're unlikely to buy it. And so I think, sampling is just one of those things that like can really get people to buy your product.
So sampling mean going out there in the market?
Going out there, going to stores, going to markets, going to events, and just getting people to try your product. It also gives you feedback, because if they try it and they don't buy it, then you know that you need to change something about it. But if they try it and they buy it, then you just made a customer. So
for example, I have a kombucha brand now, and I started at home, just like how is brewing, okay?
Yeah.
And I have a little experience in brewing also. So now I understand that this is a little foolproof product. Like, it's not going to explode, okay? Let's consider I'm at that stage, and I ask a cafe owner that, can you please place my product?
Yeah.
Any tips on that? Like how this person can make their space in an established cafe today, say in Delhi? What are the expense one can look at, and how long does it really take to grow from there also?
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure, like, as you said, that feedback is important. So when you were doing pop-ups and those markets, you got direct feedback. But when it's placed in a restaurant, how does one get a feedback?
I mean, so there's a couple of things. I mean, one, like, so when we first launched in different restaurants, we would actually go ourselves on the weekend, and we still do, like, to this day. Like we'll go, once every 6 months to Greener, spend the weekend there, give everyone a kombucha sample or a sample of another product that we have, and ask them for their feedback. So it's something that we still do, it's a continuous cycle. But yeah, we used to, when we first started, we would go to cafes, we'd go to restaurants, we'd go to stores, right? Do sampling in stores. When it comes to cafes and restaurants, you have to understand how they operate. So what their financial structure is, if they have a certain kind of, margin that they want to get on beverages that they sell, you have to kind of give them a price that fits into that margin. Otherwise, your product is cannibalizing their beverage business. And so it's important to understand that.
Like, will you be able to give me a little example?
Like, so for example, like say you're a cafe. Say I start a Nimbu Pani business.
Yeah.
Right? And you're a cafe and you have Nimbu Pani already on your menu. I say, okay, take my Nimbu Pani. It'll make your life easier. Plus, mine is made with this special lemon that's grown in Assam and it tastes incredible. It's better than your Nimbu Pani.
Yeah.
Right? But you say, well, it takes me, I make this Nimbu Pani for 5 rupees. I sell it for 100 rupees. I make 95 rupees on this. Right? Whereas I'm saying, okay, I'm going to give this to you for 50 and you're going to sell it for 100.
Yeah.
So the cafe owner will say, no, like I get a much better margin when I make it myself.
Yeah.
Say he has this great Nimbu Pani business going and then you come in and you give him a kombucha at the same price or the same like MRP.
Yeah.
And then suddenly customers are buying all of this kombucha and they're not buying his Nimbu Pani. But when he sells my kombucha, he makes 50 rupees. But when he sells his own Nimbu Pani, he makes 95 rupees. So it eats into his profit.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of understand how that works. And your product either has to be so interesting that the cafe owner says, okay, this is going to it's going to elevate my cafe if I have this product in my cafe.
Yeah.
People are going to come and just for this, right? So that would make him want to list your product. Or it's just so different from everything that he sells that he says, okay, like there are people that come in and they don't find a drink on my list.
Yeah.
So I will try. I think we've been able to sell kombucha in cafes because it's just so different from all the other beverages that, cafe owners will say, well, like, someone who wants a Coca-Cola is not going to order your kombucha. So I'm safe with all of my other drinks. But, this kombucha will appeal to a certain customer that has not been able to find a drink here in the past. Then, always take feedback. So, we always talk to the waiters. So we would, talk to the waiters, ask them, what's been moving? How's it been going? Are people saying anything about the kombucha? So, they always have all the feedback.
Oh, great. Yeah. That's a great trick. Any other tricks you learned along the way?
I mean, there's all kinds of tricks. You'll have to be more specific.
Wow, the feedback part.
Yeah.
How's it working?
No, I mean, I think about feedback, you just always have to, ask for feedback, look for it, find it in different ways you can, and then be open to it, right?
So, as you said about margins, what are the general margins in a beverage space? Say kombucha.
Depends on what your business model is.
Yeah.
So, you have your
your
cost of sold, right? You definitely want to keep that somewhere at 20%. Then you have your retail margin, which is probably going to be somewhere from 25 to 40%. Then you have your GST also, which can be 18 to 40% depending on which category you fall into. So already, if you have 40% GST and 40% retail, 20% cost of goods sold, that's your entire product right there, right?
Yeah.
So then you have to get your cost of goods sold down to 10% or 5%. So it depends on where you want to sell your product, what margins you're going to work with different retailers, that scale becomes really important. So if you're looking at a huge market, then you can say, okay, my margin that I make, my profit margin is only 5%, but I'm going to sell this to every household in the country, versus you say, okay, I'm going to sell this to a small market. So my profit margin needs to actually be 50% in order to make a profitable business.
What worked better for you, like pop-ups, your retail platform, online retail platform, and stores like the cafes?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, cafes were definitely something that did really well for us.
Yeah.
In terms of sales, I think the online platform is great for awareness, great for brand building, but not necessarily a big driver of sales, just because I think habitually people don't want to be ordering their groceries online all the time. It's just, there's just too many details you have to put in and things like that. So, people, if they can get your product when they're ordering all of their regular things.
Yeah.
They're much more likely to order it and they consume more of it. Like we've definitely seen quick commerce really take off for us. And it's the same people, or it's all the people who've been ordering our kombucha all of this time who just didn't feel like going on our website and ordering again now, you know, whenever they order their daily Instamart or Blinkit cart, you know, they just pop a kombucha in there.
Since when are you there on quick commerce?
It's been about a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's it working for you?
Great. Yeah. It's been really, really good.
Do you think a new entrepreneur should look into quick commerce, especially in a beverage category, in a beverage space?
So quick commerce, you know, and they'll be the first to tell you, you know, it's a platform. It's not for discovery. Okay. It's a platform for products that are already have a following in the market, you know. And so even when we list products with them, you know, they always want to know what is your existing sales with this product. And they won't list a product if it doesn't have sales.
Okay.
So, you know, and it's not the right place for it too, because, you know, like say you get your product with one of these quick commerce players, you know, suddenly you have to put all of this stock, you have to stock up. They have NCR, they have 150 warehouses. You have to put product in every single warehouse, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a huge scale for a beverage.
Yeah, you have to put a lot of product into
it. Like a healthy beverage.
Yeah, brand. It's a lot. It's a lot of product. And then, you know, if nobody knows about it, who's going to order it?
Yeah.
Because it's not really, I mean, sometimes you go on Blinkit or Instamart and you scroll and you kind of look and see what's here. But most of the time, you just search for what you want. And so it's really important, like when you're starting a business, one, like these companies, you know, they're maxed out. They don't have lots of extra space to be listing new brands. So it's unless you already have a lot of traction in the market.
But you think like a product which is maybe in a beverage space, which is price sensitive, but relatively new and can gain attention?
I think it's important to start building your brand first before going into retail and going into, you know, quick commerce. You know, it's important to create a brand following, advertise on social media, go to events, right? Yeah. You can interact with customers, do sampling. But once you have that following, then you can go onto these retail platforms and get people to buy your products. But especially with food, I think it's so different from like clothing or jewelry because people will buy those things online without having tasted them. But with food and beverage, I think it's very difficult to get people to buy something that they've never tasted before.
Yeah, because I have personally tried one new kombucha through Blinkit. I've tried some, say, Baker's Dozen stuff on Blinkit because otherwise, I wouldn't go to their own website and buy it. So I think I also discovered a lot of products.
You discovered new brands.
Yeah, but I could be odd one out maybe.
I think you are because you you discovered us. Like, you're right when we started. You're one of our first customers.
Yes. So is it like the price sensitive product may work better on a quick commerce? I was just wondering, like, say I want to start and I make new kombucha. It's only for 70 rupees now. It's even more competitive. Forget about the health aspect of it. Or maybe I come up with a Jaljeera brand.
It's possible, you know, but quick commerce also commands a fairly large margin.
Yeah.
And you have to pay to advertise on them as well, you know. So I think, I mean, you know, there are different categories, right?
I'm just trying to learn the aspects of commerce.
Yeah, even to get your product to show up at the top of a category, you know, you have to spend money. To get that to happen. And so, it's, you know, it's very fierce competition on quick commerce. You know, it's also one of those things where you want to get your product listed on quick commerce when you're ready. Because if you list it and it doesn't move, then your chance is over.
So trial and the test has to be done before, right?
I mean, they'll give you one chance, you know, because there's so much fierce competition to get onto those platforms. It's very challenging. I don't think unless you're, you know, super you or something like that, right? And you're like a Bollywood actor and you have crores and crores of money to sort of like convince them to list your product when it hasn't sold anywhere else before. I don't think that, you know, like quick commerce is a launch strategy.
Okay.
Unless you have like a 10 crore rupee marketing budget, in which case.
No, I mean, because
We do anything and it'll work.
yeah, true
At
that.
least for a time.
Yeah. The intent is to actually give learning to the new entrepreneurs who are also coming with a limited budget.
Yeah.
That how one can start their own beverage brand.
Yeah.
And your story is more relevant because you also started from a kitchen with passion and, of course, a lot of consistency and accepting failures as learnings. So, those are the kind of learnings these new entrepreneurs are looking at.
Yeah.
You created a premium brand in a beverage space. What is that thing that makes it premium?
I think, there's a couple of different things. Yeah. So, one is your packaging. So, if you want to have a premium brand, the product needs to look premium. It needs to be high quality, the taste of the product, the ingredients that you put into your product. And then a lot of it comes down to marketing. Is your marketing reaching that premium audience? Is it speaking the language that they speak? I think all of those things kind of, play together in creating a premium brand.
Okay. So I, of course, love your packaging, and I mentioned that it gives me a very strong recall value, and it's also nostalgic for me. Any tips for the new entrepreneur on packaging for the beverage brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it is really important to, get your product to be different, to stand out, and, to be something that looks good to the customer that you want to sell to. We have people like you who say our packaging is amazing.
Yeah.
We also have people who say this looks like a medicine bottle. I would never drink anything out of it.
Okay.
But usually that person is not our customer anyway. And so we're not too concerned about that, that bad feedback. So not everyone doesn't like every kind of packaging, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to understand who your customer is, what kind of aesthetic they like. We've done lots of different surveys over time to get people's feedback on packaging. There's with beverage, you have cans, you have plastic bottles, you have glass bottles. Those are kind of your different options.
Can I get the can too? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Oh, this is orange fizz.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's important to understand like which one of those, and be very clear about which one of those those materials you want to put your product in, and how it's going to come across to the customer. You like it?
It reminds me of a very it's oranges. Is this like Fanta?
It's supposed to be kind of like a nostalgic, like orange fizzy kind of like Tang, Fanta.
Nice. Okay, so you kept those areas also in mind and nostalgia.
Yeah, I mean this
flavors.
I mean these products like our soda, it's designed to be for maybe someone who wouldn't have a kombucha and someone who, loves drinking Fanta but doesn't want to have all of that sugar and all of those chemicals.
Okay. Can we reflect a little on the surveys that you did? Like the kind of questions you asked people about packaging?
Yeah, so I mean, we would do, kind of AV questions. Which packaging do you prefer? At one point we were thinking of switching our glass bottles to cans, for example. And we did a survey and everybody said they preferred glass bottles.
Okay.
And so we thought, okay, that was a nice idea, but it wasn't the best idea. We asked people about what kind of vibes they like. Do you prefer the ocean? Do you prefer the mountains? Do you prefer, so just getting a sense of like what people are inspired by so that when you create content, when you create packaging, it's inspiring to them.
Yeah, you also have a very particular glue that you use for your packaging, as I recall. How does one come up with a color like that? Is there a color reference or is there a meaning to the color?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that so much. I mean, I think we want our brand to be very fresh.
Like I see the same similar tone in your earrings also.
Yeah. So we use a lot of greens, some blues. Yeah, it's not like a science. It's more of an art. It's just more of kind of.
Any particular message that the color reflects?
Not per se. No. Okay. I mean, green, for health, I guess. But beyond that, no. There's nothing.
There's something subconsciously for sure. Yeah. Like it, at least to me, it tells health and wellness.
Yeah. I think
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
how to
people
connect it.
associate green with nature and
Yeah.
health and, being fresh. And so,
Yeah.
that's why we gravitate towards that color.
Let's talk about the Instagram, the marketing side, where you
Mm.
said that premiumness can also be added with the kind of marketing we do,
Yeah.
right? So, what is like you have 30,000 followers right now?
Yeah.
You did not really have a viral moment, but I think you maintain consistency,
Yeah.
which is I would also gravitate to because it's harder to do that, right?
Yeah.
It's not like one viral moment made Atmosphere to where you are today.
Yeah.
So what really worked with that sort of community?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, it's been consistency, always just focused on, creating quality content that's educational and that's informed. Which is why we've never really been able to outsource it to an agency or, it's always been in-house because content has always had to be very well informed. Which, my co-founder, Ariella, is a nutritionist.
Yeah.
I have kind of this background in food and wellness and health. And so we've always had to be very close to that kind of content strategy in order for it to feel like authentic, but also like informative and accurate. So we want everything that we do to be like scientifically accurate. It's not like, just like somebody is just copywriting who is not a nutritionist, for example, about nutrition. We have one of our co-founders is a nutritionist. So anything that we talk about with respect to nutrition, is verified by her.
So any tip to a founder who's creating their content in-house? Because they also have to manage business with content.
Yeah.
And content creation in itself is a huge task. So sometimes you end up getting lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's really important to understand as a founder, like what your strengths are. So, there are like, for example, like I have a background in marketing and I really enjoy social media and content creation. And so because I have that strength, it made sense for me to, do that in my own business. But sometimes, you see businesses where the founders, like neither of them has that strength. And then I think it's really important to outsource it to, an agency or someone who's really good and just let them do what they do, not micromanage them if it's not something that you know about. You also see a lot of bad brand pages as well out there where I think, sometimes that happens because there's a founder who, is not up to date on how to use social media, but they're like micromanaging someone to do it. And it just, it creates this kind of unhelpful content.
Okay. Did Instagram following also convert into actual paying customers for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So every month, we get a significant chunk of revenue.
What would be the percentage? Yearly, will you be?
Like it used to be for a long time, for majority of our business, 50% of our business, was D2C. Out of that 50%, probably you could say there was like a 30 to 40% that we could directly attribute to Instagram. Although, there's always those people who they maybe see a video and then they go to your website like 2 hours later. And so it's not a direct connection.
Yeah.
But I think it's been a really important channel for us to grow the brand. And all that quantity is lower. At this point, the business is probably more like 10 to 20% D2C because we have, some much larger retail partners.
So like if someone starts today, do you think starting with Instagram is a great strategy or pop-ups? Which one?
Both. I think you have to do both. Yeah.
I'll get on to the last section about mind shifts in a beverage space. Like if someone who's starting up new, what kind of mindset they should have. So first I'll reflect on any sort of mistakes that you did in your career that you felt were blunders so that the new entrepreneur can avoid making those mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, there's been lots and lots of mistakes, but I think one mistake that is something that I really think about a lot now is not developing myself as a leader early on and not understanding the importance of that as we are building a company. I think when we were first starting the company and even in the first few years of running Atmosphere, I was focused on my ability to do things. It was like, okay, I'm a good marketer or I'm good at making kombucha or creating recipes, but I wasn't really focused on developing my ability to lead people and organize people and manage them. And I think that's something that I came around to later, and it made the process much harder.
Any particular incident that you remember that you sort of go back to always as an example that brought change in the way you work? Like sometimes we all have like some blunders that we make and we always remember those.
Yeah, nothing in particular that comes to mind in that sense. Yeah.
I think maybe that bottle popping out, like the carbonated drinks, the carbonation, right?
Definitely, there was a time when we had a lot of inconsistency in the product. It made us realize that we needed to learn more about the product and get more knowledge and adjust our processes so that we could create a more consistent product. Yeah, I think that was definitely, kind of a crisis that helped us actually become more knowledgeable about what we were doing.
If you had to give one piece of advice to a 25-year-old who wants to start in a beverage space today, what could that be?
I think, you have to ensure that whatever it is you're doing, you're like super duper passionate about it. You have a mission and you're very clear what your mission is. That mission cannot just be making money. Because I think, especially in the beverage space, it's going to take a long time to really generate significant profits.
Yeah.
And so when you're broke and you're in debt, nothing seems to be working very well, and your bottles are exploding all over the place, which was my situation.
Yeah.
Is your mission? Are you passionate enough about it to still keep going?
You think passion comes from talent? Like, if you are talented in something and you're able to consistently do it, then you say that this is passion.
Not necessarily.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm good at, but I'm not passionate about them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I heard this psychological question in one of the podcasts, and I was like really dwelling into it, that what is really passion? Like, because every entrepreneur will have their own sight towards it.
Yeah.
So you're good at other things, but you're not passionate about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I think when I was thinking about okay, what do I want to do with my life? It was like, what gets me really excited? What is something that even if I don't make any money out of it, it would still be worth it.
Yeah.
For me, even if I shut Atmosphere tomorrow, at least I helped you with your gut health, and you felt better for it because of it. And that's something that will always stay with me. Passion is one of those things where you would do it no matter what, which is so important because, being an entrepreneur, having a startup is going to give you a lot of those, no matter what situations, there's going to be a lot of breakdowns. There's going to be a lot of failures. In our business, we've failed many, many, many times.
And what are those failures exactly? Are they returns or, I mean...
it's product quality issues, returns, contracts being canceled, cash issues, debt, right? Employees, leaving or turning on you, or, all of these different things happen in the business, and breakdowns between founders as well, right? Happen in businesses. So I think if what really separates the businesses that survive from the ones that don't are the people who can just keep going.
So I hear you mentioning this money management, right? Like
cash management.
Management, that it can also become a problem, right? And you're still trying to crack that, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the new model of quick commerce coming in.
Yeah.
What are those challenges that one should look at?
Yeah, it's a good...
any solutions also that you...
It's important to, understand, I think we didn't understand this from the beginning, what cash flow means and what it looks like. It's important to understand what your cycles look like. So for example, if you are giving people product and you're giving them a 30-day period to pay you, but you're buying everything and paying in advance. At some point, you're going to run out of money, right? The bigger you get, the more problematic it's going to become. So, creating proper systems so that you're making money and that money is going to pay for your raw materials and that money keeps flowing is very important. Or understanding when you need to infuse money into the business in order to grow. But I think what's challenging in India is that there's not a lot of integrity around payments, right? And so that makes it extra challenging. It makes cash collection a full-time job.
Especially in cafes, is it?
With everything, retail stores, cafes, the bigger, the more difficult it is to get your money out of, to be honest. I think, it's just it's a fight. It's a constant fight. I think that's the hardest and the most depressing part.
You pay when you get the money, is it?
You pay your vendors?
Yeah. With the money, like, for example, your money is stuck when you do not get it from the restaurant, but you have already paid for the product, right?
Product that you sent.
The manufacturing and everything. So there's no way that you can either pay for the product later.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're working on. Yeah. So it's definitely, I think one thing we've started doing is really, when you're small, you can't.
Yeah.
When you're placing your first tiny little order, no one's going to tell you, oh, pay me after 60 days, right? Sure. But if you work with someone for 3 years and your orders have become sizable, you're able to, negotiate those payment terms. So, but it's something that's very important to understand and to do before you need to do it. Otherwise, you can end up in a situation where you don't have money to run your business.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's also like, I think we've also had to learn how to become very aggressive about collecting our money as well. We used to sort of be like, oh, we trust you, pay us when you can. And now, we're also very particular about, collecting.
Okay. Yeah. And how does it work out with Blinkit? The numbers are huge, right? The amount of products you have to keep on the shelf.
Yeah.
So do you have to invest all out for all these products?
No, you can, Blinkit has different models. So they have you can choose to put your product only in certain cities. You can choose to launch in one city. They have also a 30-minute store and a 10-minute store. The 30-minute store is more premium. So you can choose to put your products only in the 30-minute store. But you still have to put a lot of product into the system. The system only works if there's product everywhere, right? That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It also means that there's a certain amount of cash flow, when you list in a company, like in a quick commerce company, that cash flow, that working capital has to be allocated to that business.
Okay.
And it's always going to be allocated to that business. Yeah.
Okay. So you had to keep certain cash flows available for you to get onto quick commerce, right?
Yeah.
And when you say shelf life, because a product that is live will also have a limited shelf life.
Yeah.
How does one manage that?
You have to sort of get an accurate understanding of your projections and how much you're going to sell. So it's important not to overstock. But at the same time, like, you can only do that when you have your own manufacturing. So for example, like at Atmosphere, we make 2 or 3 batches of kombucha every week. And we try to send to stores, like, we send less quantity, but we say, okay, we'll replenish it later this week if you want, but don't order too much.
Yeah.
So that you have expiry.
And you have any manager who gives you projections? Like, is that usually given, or you just take out the data yourself?
I think we create that data ourselves, yeah.
I think it was a very, very insightful session. I really digged into a lot of intricate details, but the idea was to understand that what really takes to stay in a beverage brand. And it's interesting to understand how quick commerce also works. Kind of created those steps that one should be doing, like, say, sampling first, testing it out, then focus on packaging, how one can do their marketing, a lot of the product research. Of course, allocation of funds and managing those.
Yeah.
And also looking at the shortcomings in terms of product returns or quality issues. So it was pretty insightful, and thanks for making time today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was really fun to be here. And I've loved looking at your clothing and all of the different prints. It's really beautiful and inspiring.
Thank you so much. I love that we both are aligned with the colors.
Yeah.
Let's make some difference with this little podcast that we have today.
Yeah, for sure.